Hi guys, welcome back to Sam and Sid's Cooking Show. Tonight we're actually going to do a roasted chicken thigh dinner. Actually, I got this off of Jamie Oliver, one of Jamie Oliver's cookbooks. So shout out to Jamie Oliver for this one. And by the way, this is one of my favorite cookbooks of all time, Jamie Oliver, Meals in Minutes. Now it's a little more complicated than what we're talking about, but this is a good place to graduate to in the future. So we'll be moving on to that, more complicated recipes in time. Anyways, so let's get going here. I'm going to get my apron on. Just one thing to think about when you're doing a dinner. Now, I just had a very busy day. I got hockey tonight. You can see the jersey, world famous Devils jersey. And so I don't have a lot of time. But I was thinking about dinner earlier today, and coming home, I just went by this supermarket, got the basic ingredients. You've got them in the recipe that's on the YouTube channel. So just take a look at the ingredients there. They're really simple. What I've done for this meal, because I have a couple more people coming over, I've actually doubled the chicken and all the vegetables in that I've done 1.5 times. So that's good either if you have more company or if you want leftovers. And quite frankly, for you guys, it's all about leftovers. You don't want to be cooking a meal every single night. If you have a chance, you cook a meal that'll last you 2 nights, maybe 3 stretching it. But at least you have the opportunity to have some leftovers. So, we're roasting, therefore we're going to need the roasting pan. And I've turned the oven on to 350 as it said in the directions. So that oven is now heating up while I'm preparing the meal. So, there's really 2 major components, the vegetables and the chicken. Now I've already pre-done some of them and we'll put it all together in a second. But let me just go through some of the technique with each of these ingredients. First of all, again, you get your big chef's knife. You always want to use this steel to just put a nice sharp edge on it. I've washed the vegetables. And how do you cut a pepper? It's very important that you don't put your hands across or hold things where the knife's under it. I want you to always use your hands like this so that the knife is on that side of your fingers. So all I've done is cut both ends off, sliced it, open it up. This is just de-seeding it. All right. Give it a little wash. All the seeds are gone. This right here, just take these end pieces. You can just hand break them. And this is just a rough chop of the peppers. All right. Get those off. Then you're going to be adding in tomatoes and onions. Now the thing with onions is that they have a little filament or a little skin on them. What you want to do is take a paring knife and use this technique. You don't cut across your finger, but you can go right into your finger with all kinds of things, whether it's fruit. And all I'm doing is I'm cutting the tops and the ends off. And then I'm peeling the skin off just by this action, okay? You just lightly down. This takes practice, it takes years of practice. And I'm just peeling the top layer off to now have it nice and onion-like. This happens to be a red onion. I've got 2 white onions. The recipe calls for 2 onions. I've got 3 in because I've gone 1.5 times. So I turn the onion on its side and cut. And I'm quartering the onion. And I'm quartering the tomatoes. Same thing. These are washed. You can just go to the top and bottom here. Tomato, cut, cut. Very simple. Vegetables are done in just a minute. Okay? Now I've got other ones already prepared there. So when it comes to the chicken, now we go to the chicken. I always like to wash my chicken in cold water, so there is an extra step here, but I'm going to be washing it like this. Okay? Then I like to dry it off a little bit before I handle it. So now this is just 4 pieces. I have other ones. What I like to do is I like the bone-in thighs. You can do boneless if you wish, but taking the skin off, all that extra fat's not required. So all I do is I just put my thumb through here, and of course I've washed my hands, and the skin goes into your organic green waste. And here we go. Your ingredients, the chicken, and all the vegetables have been cut and prepared. So I forgot to mention at the beginning is that we have three major dishes in this dinner. One is the roasted chicken thighs, one is roasted potatoes, and another is a Caesar salad. So like in all other in all the other meals, you want to start with your long lead time. This is going to take an hour to cook in the oven. The oven's doing all the work, and so we get this one in right away. I've cheated a little bit. I took the smaller roasting pan away and I've used one of my larger roasting pans. But really simply, you just take all the vegetables that you cut up, put it in the pan, grab your chicken, and put it in the pan as well. And then we're going to start applying some seasoning. You see, can you get a close-up in there, Samson? Mm-hmm. All these beautiful vegetables, all the onions, the tomatoes. You've got different types of peppers. We only had yellow and orange, so that's what we used. I think the recipe calls for yellow and red. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you get some good peppers. So we've now got everything assembled there. Now it's time to season it. So what about measuring? In baking, it's very important that you have really precise measurements, but when you're cooking a meal like this, you have a little bit more flexibility. Now the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of paprika. So here's some thyme. I've talked to you about freeze-dried herbs rather than fresh or just the powdered ones. I like these better because I think it's a good compromise. I use fresh whenever I can, but I recognize you guys have more limitations. So there's a teaspoon of thyme. What's most important is that you put it in the palm of your hand to start getting a feeling of what a teaspoon looks like, okay? Now because I've made this almost doubled it, I'm going to use 2 of each, okay? So the first one I've measured it out. I want you to take it out in your fingers and just above it, high above it, sprinkle it, okay? And it's important that you get high above because then it distributes the herbs and spices more evenly. If you're down low, they tend to clump up. Well, now I'm just going to redo this. I'm going to do another teaspoon, approximately. So I'm going to direct pour it in, and that's about what we had when we measured it. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, because now we know roughly what a teaspoon looks like in your hand. No point having to do this; just takes forever. Same thing with the paprika. I believe the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of paprika. So I'm now pouring the paprika in my hand. And by the way, paprika is a Hungarian spice that is very popular in chicken dishes. Okay, paprika and chicken seem to go beautiful together. We'll roast a chicken in future shows, and you'll see we'll use some paprika. You can have regular paprika, you can have smoked paprika, which is a whole different nice taste to it as well. So again, high above the pan, I am putting the spices. Then it calls for some salt. I'm just taking a pinch of salt and doing the same thing. And what I tend to do is I tend to keep my salt in one of these things, and I have it in one of these bowls because I use it so much. It just makes it a lot simpler. Doing the same thing. Probably put a teaspoon of pepper in. Okay. All right, so now we got a nicely seasoned dish. Maybe what I should have done is put the oil and the vinegar in first and then did this, but I was so excited about the spices and teaching you how to do that I forgot. So, it's not all lost. The recipe also calls for 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And this is sort of the same thing, okay? Now we've doubled it. The olive oil is what's going to make it roast. I've taken 1 tablespoon and I'm pouring it out. I'm seeing what that looks like, right? How long that took. Well, I know right now it needs 4, so I'm going to put another one in. 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that's just approximate. Once you mix it up, you may see it needs a little bit more, and then you just put a little bit more in. Balsamic vinegar calls for 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. A little trickier because it's got a stop on it, but I'm going to try it anyway. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now, all the spices, all the liquids are in, the chicken's in, all the vegetables. Now we're going to mix it up and get it in the oven. I'm just going to take my hands. They're clean. I've been washing them regularly here, so here we go. We're now mixing this all up so that all the ingredients are perfectly mixed up together. The spices, the oils, the vinegars. This is going to be delicious. Now we're putting this in the oven to roast. Again, for the next hour, we'll let the oven do the work. We're going to check it twice. We're going to check it at the 20-minute mark, at the 40-minute mark, and then we're going to take it out in an hour if it's done. And I'll show you how to take that done. That looks just fabulous. Off to the oven. And I set the alarm for 20 minutes, and then we'll stir it up. Uh-oh, I forgot to put the garlic in. So, it calls for 4 cloves of garlic. We've doubled them. Just grab your garlic, move the little garlic things here. Just get a little bit of the filament off them. Take a spoon, crush them a bit, just to make sure they get cooking. Okay. Yeah, smash them up a bit, and then we're going to get them in the pan. These are the little gems of the dish that you don't want to miss. So I got them here. Grab an extra one. Grab myself a wooden spoon, an oven mitt, and get them in the oven here. Sprinkle those in. Move them around, and we've recovered with the garlic. Okay, so our mid-timeline component of dinner are the potatoes, and the recipe talks about roasting new potatoes. These are actually quite small, so they're not going to take quite as long to cook. The recipe calls for 450 degrees, I think for 45 to 55 minutes for small to mid-sized new potatoes. All they had in the supermarket were these small ones. I've washed them in the cauldron. I'm now going to put them in the roasting pan, one level. Just so you know, if you don't have access to these, you can still do it with this. You can just take and wash a regular potato and cut it, and it's all about getting potatoes about the same size, okay? So, for example, these 4 pieces, they're about the same size. They'll do the exact same thing. This is just a little luxury to have these small potatoes here. Now what we know right now is that chicken thigh dinner is in at 350. This is to be 450 for 45 to 55 minutes, but these are quite small potatoes. So what I'm thinking right now is I'm going to put these in the oven at 350 for about 45 to 50 minutes because they're smaller. They should be done roughly exact same time as the chicken thighs. If they're not quite done yet, then we'll pull the chicken thighs out, let that sit a bit, which you're going to have to anyways, and turn the oven up and cook these. But let's just see what it's like then. So we've got the potatoes in the roaster. It's really simple after that. Take your olive oil, because you need some olive oil for roasting. Little salt and pepper. I'm going to mix these up a little bit so they're coated. Okay. Coating the potatoes with the olive oil. I've got the salt on them. I'm going to take the pepper. Actually, I don't need to do this like this. I can just put pepper over top here because I'm not measuring it. Okay. The 2 herbs or ingredients that are going to make these roasted potatoes just great are rosemary and garlic. Rosemary and garlic are absolutely the perfect spices and herbs to put together. These are dried rosemary flakes. You'd use about a teaspoon of these for this many potatoes, or if you have fresh ones, fresh rosemary, which I just happen to have out of the garden, then you're going to use, well, I'd say a teaspoon, probably a tablespoon and a half. So again, I'm going to take the rosemary, I'm just going to put it on top, all over the potatoes. I'll mix that up in a minute. I then have 3 garlic cloves that I've taken the skin off. And this is called a garlic press. I'm going to put them in there. And this is mincing your garlic so that it really mixes well with your dish. Okay. Second one in. See all the garlic, tasty, tasty garlic goes in. Last one. Okay. Got the spoon, now mixing all of it up. You can use your hands if you want, it's just going to get a little dirty. Okay. Many times I'll do this in a bowl first and then transfer it, which tends to coat them maybe a little bit better. I just didn't want you guys to have to worry about as many dishes. I'm just going to get my hands on it and really get it in here. Just like the chicken thighs though, we're going to check them partway through. We're going to stir them to make sure that they're all evenly cooked. All right? These are going in the oven now. We're 15 minutes in of an hour here, so we got about another 45 minutes. So I'm going to put the potatoes in now. That's looking great. We'll come back and check on that in just a minute. All right, guys. So we're just coming up to the 20-minute mark. So let's open up. See what we got here in the chicken. Now we're going to just stir it up so it's nice and evenly cooked. All right. All right, put that back in. Shake the potatoes a bit. We'll come back and check those in a minute. Got the timer back on 20 minutes. All right, and of course we got the world famous Vancouver Devils hockey jersey here. Got the big game tonight, 8:15. Here we go. Okay, so we've just dealt with the chicken and the potatoes. Now the last thing we need to do is prep the salad. We're going to prep the salad and then we're going to dress it right at the very end when the chicken is just resting. So we have romaine lettuce here, full head. It's actually a very simple preparation. Just cut the bottom off, just the whitest area is there. Now it's a matter of washing it. There's really two ways you can prepare lettuce. You can cut it, wash it, and put it in a spinner. This is a nice luxury to have. If you do a lot of salads, you have to get one of